akkor elérkeztünk az első szakmai és vitszintű előadáshoz. Át is adnám a szót Piersonnak, hogy tartsa meg az előadását, amelynek a kiadottól egy kicsit megváltoztattuk a címet, ott is le van írva a mappában, de kitaláltuk ezt végül együtt tegnap, hogy van ez a jó kis szlogen, a Secure by Default, szerintem mindenki ismeri ezt, meg azt is, hogy honnan származik, úgyhogy pont jó lesz az ő előadásának, hogy mennyi az igazság ebben.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. I'm just very pleased to be in your country. This is the first time I've been to Hungary and Budapest, and so I just think it's beautiful here. And so thank you very much for having me. As Marcella said, my name is Tim Pierson. From EC Council. The name of my company is Data-Sentry. I come from Dallas, Texas. All right, and probably most of you guys have heard of the place. Probably get some of the reruns of the show, maybe Dallas, I would imagine. I know I was teaching a class in Paris, I guess this has been about 5 years ago, and this one guy raised his hand and he said, because I wrote up on the board, Tim Pierson, IBM USA, Dallas, Texas, and he raised his hand. He said, you ride horse? No. I said, no. I said, well, I rode him to the airport, but he couldn't swim, so I had to leave him there in the corral. So basically, I don't know JR, okay? I come from Dallas, but we're a very, very progressive city. I kind of consider myself a networking and technology guru. Okay? I would imagine you guys are very, very similar to me in a lot of regards. All right, and I'll give you this little test a little bit later on during the presentation, just to see if you meet the geek, okay, measurement or not. All right. I was telling Marcella that wow, I wish I could talk my wife into something like this. I use the same ploy, I'm sure you guys do, but how did we need it for my work? I mean, it's important. I'm sure you guys use that same type of thing to get, you know, new items, new technology for you. I specialize in security and in virtualization, and a portion of my talk will be on virtualization. I'd like to have, with a show of hands, please, how many people are using something like ESX or some kind of a virtual server of some kind? Okay, I just love that. You guys are gonna be perfect. Okay, as I said, I'm specialized in security and virtualization. I'm the contributing author to a new book that will be released here in July. It's VMware vSphere and Virtual Infrastructure Security. Okay, securing the ESX in the virtual environment. Okay, and I've got a little ISBN number and such that's there. Now, I think probably what more the presentation will be about than anything else is that during our click next to move on to the to get the particular product installed, oftentimes we lose sight of where it's really secure. All right? And this really has manifested itself more than anything else in the virtual environment. Because in the virtual environment, it's so easy just to bring something up and deploy a brand new machine. You can do it in 5 minutes, 3 minutes, even 2 minutes perhaps, depending upon the size of the machine. All right, and this gets to be problematic, okay, from the view of the security department. Okay, are we really secure when we're doing some of these things? And so I'm going to hopefully open your eyes on some things that you might have thought were secure, but maybe not. Basically, when you click next, is it really secure? All right? From the standpoint of the manufacturer, okay, is it secure? From the standpoint of the business owner, all right, does he really think it's secure? A storage warehouse, things like iSCSI, SAN, NFS. How many people in here are using some kind of remote storage device, iSCSI, SAN, okay? Very good. I'm going to hopefully open your eyes to a couple of things as well, because you may or may not be aware it actually is very insecure. What about the hacker himself? Does the hacker itself think it's secure? Let's do just a little bit of publicity here. The course I was asked to come and teach is the ECSA LPT course. All right, and that's EC Council's version of the licensed penetration testing course. Right? It's the next step on from the Certified Ethical Hacker course. All right, so I always describe it as the Certified Ethical Hacker course provides you the tools or teaches you the tools in your toolbox, where the LPT ECSA course shows you how to use those tools. It also shows you how to present those tools and to make sure that you prepare a report that will look good for the findings of the C-level people in the organization, the CFO, the CEO, the CIO, and so on. Basically, what is pen testing? Well, basically, pen testing is just simply testing the device to be sure that it is indeed secure. All right, we're going to talk real quickly about what the difference is between vulnerability assessment and pen testing. Why pen testing is required, and why should seasoned IT people such as yourself actually venture into this particular sector. Right? Are there jobs available for this? Is this something we should focus our particular career on, perhaps? Despite the economy, IT security salaries are basically on the rise. In the final quarter of 2008, overall pay for the uncertified IT professionals recorded a calendar quarter decline of about 0.5%. Pay for a handful of IT skill sets, including several security skills and certifications, actually grew. Okay, in the fourth quarter of 2008, a researcher found that Easy Counsel's Certified Ethical Hacker as a certification was posting the greatest gains for seeing the highest pay increases, actually up about 40% in 2008. Just to give you a couple of screen splashes, ones that we've all, I'm sure, seen. Corporate penetration testers are also known as white hatters due to their use of the hacking techniques at ethical ends. Do you guys know where the term white hat and black hat actually comes from? You might find this kind of interesting. It actually comes from the old Western movies where the good guy always wore a white hat, okay, and the bad guy always wore a black hat. Just a little bit of useless trivia for you there. The IT Job Watch in the UK shows that the penetration tester is up 72%. Ethical hacking, 15%. All right, and this is actually what they're looking for when they're looking for jobs. I'm sure you guys heard about this. All right, this is probably one of our biggest break-ins to date. This is going to dwarf the previous one from TJ Maxx. This was the credit card processor Heartland, okay, and their payment system was actually hacked, stealing a huge amount of data, okay, from these individuals. Well, what's this data worth? What are the hackers are actually looking for here? Whether you knew it or not, it takes actually 3 pieces of information in order for you to steal someone's identity. That would include, in the U.S., a social security number, a full legal name, okay, and a date of birth. With those 3 pieces of information, that's worth about $10 on the black market. Okay? Now, $10 probably is not a whole lot of money, although I would venture to say that most IT departments of any substantial size, okay, as far as their HR department, 100,000 records of those employees, whether they're past or present, would probably be a pretty good guess as the number of items that we could get if we were able to break into it. So let's say we got 100,000 items, okay, in there. If that's the case, then we've just arrived at one of the newly created millionaires. So it is something the hackers are definitely looking for as far as the economics of actually breaking in and hacking. The economic crisis actually heightened the need for security. Actually, what it says here, security risks are heightened at the world's largest financial institutions. This is a report from Deloitte and Touche. Okay, basically what it says is that there's an overall concern that we need to tighten up our security, all right, especially in these shy economic times. The security landscape, these are just a couple of screenshots to give you an idea of what these would look like. All right, here's one that the government job sites okay, were hacked, all right, baked into these. Spammers hack into the Aussie government website, okay. Security software makers' own website was hacked. Now let's talk about this for just a second, because this is really important, okay. As a matter of fact, some of you guys may have known RSA many years ago. I think it's probably about 8, 9 years ago, was broken into, and their website was defaced. Basically, their website was just, the wording and stuff was just changed around on the front part of their website. That caused such grave losses of sales because the public looked at them, okay, you're a security company, and you can't even keep your own website secure? Why should I buy your particular product? This caused a lot of problems because most businesses don't actually figure how much their intellectual property or their reputations are actually worth. They don't figure that into the equation when they look at what kind of devastation is going to happen if we get hacked, if we get broken into. As a matter of fact, on the RSA one, it wasn't even RSA that was managing the website. It was actually some third-party company that was actually managing the website, which is extremely popular today. But guess who took the fall for it? Unfortunately, that's our climate today. I would venture to say that you guys would not feel extremely comfortable if you were to put your money into some bank and that bank got hacked 3 or 4 times this week. Right? Even though maybe it's protected by some government entity that you may have, you're still probably not going to feel real comfortable about actually putting your money in it. And so the reputations of these companies is extremely important. And a lot of businesses don't step up and realize that. So a penetration test, okay, to be basically rattling the doorknob to ensure that it actually is secure is of utmost importance. So what is it? Basically, a penetration test is just simply the process of actively evaluating the company's information security posture. We did this exactly when we left our home or apartment today. We locked our door and we gave it a little shove, okay, to make sure it did latch or make sure it locked. We did the same thing with our car perhaps today when we were out in the parking lot. We pulled back up on the handle to make sure it did indeed lock. Okay? This small little test that you maybe unconsciously did needs to also be done from the standpoint of your security information systems. A lot of CEOs assume that it's actually secure when it's really not been tested. One thing that you're going to find out, especially if you're governed by some regulatory laws, now, I know this isn't the U.S., but in the U.S. we have Sarbanes-Oxley. Now, if you deal with U.S. and you're a publicly traded company, you still have to deal with Sarbanes-Oxley. I see some people nodding their heads, and maybe that's perhaps possible in your particular situation. What happened with the Sarbanes-Oxley is now the CEO or the upper level officers, their neck is in the noose now. Right? They can't just simply say, well, I didn't know that it was insecure. I didn't know that we could possibly lose all this money. So you'll end up having a lot of higher level officers go in to check and do their, what I like to refer to as due diligence. All right? Basically what they're doing is providing some kind of a mechanism to prove, hey, we did what we could to ensure that it was protected. Okay? So they basically are cover your ass, CYA, okay, we'll refer to that in the U.S. So basically what they're doing is they're going through there and making sure we've done everything possible from my standpoint to ensure it was secure. All right? So if we do get hacked, I can always go back and say, okay, yeah, but look, I did what I could, all right? Yeah, we got hacked, and that's really, I'm really sorry about that, but I did what I could, all right? Previous, they were just ambivalent to it. Now you're going to see a lot more higher level officers that actually stand up and take notice that it is secure. What I like to explain is that security is like one great big yardstick. Okay? Ease of use is at one end of the yardstick, while security is at the other end of the yardstick. I would venture to say that those of you that are systems administrators in here, you could tighten up your security better than it is right now, all right? And you all know that you could. But more than likely, if you did, you probably have all of the individuals that are working for the company be chasing you through the town with torches like villagers ready to hang you. You have to meet some balance that you're comfortable with. Right? Yes, we could create a password that's, for example, 25 characters long, but the reaction of the people that we actually are forced to use that particular password may be negative, okay, as far as that's concerned. So security postures are actually analyzed and designed for weaknesses, technical flaws, and vulnerabilities. So the results are actually delivered comprehensively in a report, okay, that they can show to the C-level officers and possibly shareholders, okay, and other interested entities to ensure, yes, we did what we could to make sure that this was secure. We've done our due diligence. We've crossed our T's and dotted our I's to make sure that it was what we thought it was going to be. Okay? So that's kind of what a penetration test is. So what's a vulnerability assessment? Okay? Because most thought it was going to be. Okay? So that's kind of what a penetration test is. So what's a vulnerability assessment? Okay? Because most individuals think it's the same thing. In reality, a vulnerability assessment is just simply an examination of the ability of the system, okay, or the application, including current security procedures and controls against known vulnerabilities. This has nothing to do with something that's unknown. It has nothing to do with just kind of a gut feel or trying things that are out of the box, all right, that a penetration tester would actually have to do. A good penetration tester is not just simply going to run a Nessus scan on your system and provide you a report, okay, and then collect his money. Now, that would be nice if you could do that. I mean, it would be really cost effective if you could do that. Unfortunately, not too many businesses are going to sit still for you just charging an exorbitant amount of money doing that type of thing. Most penetration testers will charge by the IP address. Going rates are in the neighborhood of anywhere from $150 up to even as much as $1,500 per IP address. It's not unusual for a penetration test to cost anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000, okay, depending upon the organization, what they feel like the value of the assets are in the organization. And the key points you generally should ask are, what's it going to cost you to lose these particular assets? Identify what the assets are in the corporation and then ask the C-level officers, what will it cost you to lose these particular assets? Or if your competitor were to have these assets, or if these assets were breach modified, okay, or something of that nature. All right. A vulnerability assessment can be used to naturally identify weaknesses that could be exploited and then predict the effectiveness of any other type of security in protecting information resources from this type of an attack. A couple of facts. All right, as I said before, it's not a penetration test. In fact, it's really a subset of it. Most penetration testers use a vulnerability assessment as the starting point. They basically identify weaknesses and then use that as a foothold to get into the corporation in some way, shape, or form to exploit further weaknesses. Vulnerability scanners are reactive, not proactive. Okay? In other words, they don't tell you what something is going to happen after the fact. Right? It's kind of like closing the barn gate when the horses are already out of the barn. They're subject to frequent false positives, right? Highly dependent upon the quality of the software, and they can only report commonly known vulnerabilities. The penetration testing and legal compliance, you may be compelled to do a penetration test. And I would venture to say that's why most companies are doing penetration tests these days, okay? Because they're required to by some kind of an organization that requires them to do so. For example, the payment card industry, data security infrastructure, PCI. If you take any kind of Visa, MasterCard, you're going to be required to do these things. And I'm sure this is also required here, okay? Sarbanes-Oxley, as we talked about before, This one here is a U.S. standard, the HIPAA, okay, for the health privacy. Other national government requirements also require this. So it's important to find what is required in your organizations to actually have a penetration test done. So what are the different types of penetration tests? Of course, we have the external penetration tests, see what we can get in from the outside. I've done many, many penetration tests. And over my entire career, I've got about a 1% success rate from the outside. Okay? You probably say, well, that's not too whippy good. Well, actually, I've got a 99.9% success rate on the inside. Okay? So if you allow me to come in your doors and plug my laptop into one of your ports, I can pretty much get access to just about everything else. Right? We've done a fairly good job of being able to protect ourselves from the external point of view. From the internal point of view, okay, not really so whippy good. All right? Unfortunately, most of you guys know that anywhere from 70 to 80% of the attacks come from the inside. And so it's not just sufficient just to say, okay, I'm going to make sure I've got a really tight external security and forget about the internal security. Yes, we all want to trust our employees, but that's not necessarily taking things prudently. We need to make sure that what they have access to, they need to have access to, all right? And really nothing more to do it correctly, all right? Internal security assessment, application security assessment, of course, network security assessment, wireless, remote access, okay, telephony security assessment, and probably the biggest one, social engineering, all right? Unfortunately, you can't really put a service pack on a person, okay? And I like to make the statement, there's no patch for stupidity, all right? I'd like to, I can't really sugarcoat it any better than that, all right? More than likely, if in your organization, if you've told somebody, now don't do that anymore, and they just not do it, all right? It just simply doesn't happen, okay? Most network administrators have to have some kind of mechanism to either enforce that they don't do it, or be able to audit when they come back and do it to find out that they have done it, right? The problem is, a lot of times, the person that you're actually trying to enforce these limitations on is the guy that signs your paycheck, okay? And a lot of you guys that are smiling know exactly what I'm talking about. I used to work for a very large mortgage company. At the mortgage company, basically they said, okay, Tim, I want you to go ahead and tighten up everybody else's security, but don't do me that. I don't want to mess with all of that. Well, that's just the person I want to make sure they're secure, all right? The other guys I could pretty much control. It was the guy at the top level of the organization that thought I had to have access to everything, all right? And so we played this game, okay, for my tenure for over about 3 or 4 years, that I would grant him access, then he would go ahead and be able to check to make sure he could get access. Then I'd take it away from him, all right? And he didn't know it for like about 6 months, and he'd call me and say, okay, I can't get back into it. Oh, it must be some glitch. I'd grant him access. We did this in song and dance because I'd lock him back out of it because he didn't really know what he was doing. He did sign my paycheck. He didn't know how to do that, and so I wanted to ensure that was still happening. But at the same time, I didn't want him to mess up or muddle up anything that I spent my hard work on, because guess what? It was going to roll back to me if it did. Right? You guys, I'm sure, are in the same situation in a lot of cases. All right? Are you a tinkerer? Okay, or do you take the defaults? Are you the type of individual that likes to tinker with things, see how it works? All right? Do you just install it and just take the defaults? Some manufacturers say it's secure out of the box. Don't mess with it. Some don't. Some manufacturers say it's secure out of the box, and it really isn't. Some geeky tech guys take the defaults. Some don't. Okay? How can you be sure if you're a geek or not? Well, I'm going to give you a test on the very next slide to see if you're a geek, and you can determine this. There is a comedian in the U.S. His name is Jeff Foxworthy. Show of hands, anybody heard of him? Nobody. Okay, so I can, one person. So I can say pretty much whatever I want, you believe it. Okay, got it. Okay, he uses this saying, how can you tell if you're a redneck? All right, a redneck in the U.S. is basically an individual that drives a pickup truck. He's very laid back, a hillbilly. One of his jokes is, if you mow your grass and you find a car, you might be a redneck. Okay, another one is, if your buddy asks you to come over and help him take the wheels off your new home, you might be a redneck. These are just some of his jokes. Well, I came up with my own, all right? If you've heard this from your wife, it's working, dear, don't touch it, okay? You might be a redneck, or you might be a geek. Why do we have to reboot our TV? Okay, all my friends don't have to reboot their TVs. I like this house. Who cares if it has high-speed internet? It's not available in this area. We should buy this one. If any of those points hit home to you or sound familiar, then yeah, you're probably a geek. All right. I put up this one little slide right here, and I am constantly having arguments with my wife where I need this particular device or I need this piece of equipment to do something. And some of you guys may have heard of this particular company called TalkShoe. Anybody heard of this? It's a podcasting company that you can do free podcasts. All right, so basically if you have something and you have an audience of what you would want to talk about, then you can use this, you can call in for free, and it's really handy, it's really nice. I use this for a lot of my podcasts that I do and things of that nature, and so my wife always refers to things as being NASA. Okay, I said, it's too nasty. Just explain it to me easy, you know. And so she saw this one day. She said, "Oh, TalkShoe, what's that?" And I said, "Well, this is where you can go in and talk about things." And she said, "Oh my gosh, fine, I can talk about shoes all day long." I said, "Dear, that's not what it's about." What are things we're actually trying to catch? Okay, things like default weaknesses, insecurities left in by default. Manufacturers often will default what will cause them the least amount of tech support calls. No, not what is really most secure. Good case in point are wireless access points. The wireless access point, for the longest period of time, were just simply wide open, okay? Because with the price of the wireless access point, one technical support call, they basically lost all the profit, okay, from that access point. So they wanted to try and keep it to a minimum, okay, at best, all right? So they basically left it wide open. Well, now they're actually doing things to make it a little bit easier to do this, and that's not necessarily the default any longer, all right? But there's still a lot of things that use this as the default, all right? If you're actually looking for Wi-Fi, all right, and this will, basically, I probably should use this as knowing you're a geek. If you're driving around and you see a wireless access point named Linksys, okay, you're probably, and a smile comes to your face, you're probably a geek, all right? Because you probably not only know that that access point was made or was manufactured by Linksys, but you probably also know what the password is to it. Because if they didn't bother to change their SSID name, they probably didn't bother to change the password. You could actually go in and lock them out of it if you wanted to. For the longest period of time in the US, my next door neighbor had an access point that was wide open. And if I'm doing a big download at my house and clogging up the bandwidth, well, I'll jump on his. Okay? Not necessarily 100% ethical. I'm kind of known as the geek in my area, and so he came over to me one day and he had this brochure from our telecommunication company, Southwestern Bell, and he said, "Tim, this is a great deal, I think. They're providing 10 megabit per second download, and I only have to pay $50 a month. You think I should buy it?" I said, "Well, of course you should buy it. Okay, I need the speed." So it's not always just the, you might have some things that are a little slanted in your particular direction. When the manufacturer says they are very secure, we expect them to be secure. Things like VMware, especially ESX server, and now vSphere. All right, and I'm going to also explain to you these demos that I do for you here. Once it's taught, it's very difficult to unteach someone. All right, if you teach them to do it this way, it's very difficult to say, "No, don't do that anymore. Do it like this," and they just simply do it. VMware has actually boiled down its security in the systems admin to specifically 3 checkboxes. Okay? These 3 checkboxes constitute all of its security. All right? Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you have a firewall, did you have more than 3 options on your firewall? Did you have more than 3 options on most of your security devices? Okay, I'm just trying to get my head around that, just 3 little check boxes or 3 little drop-down boxes that gives me the capability to secure everything I want inside of VMware. Okay, as you can imagine, there's some things for improvement and some things that we probably should look at. Now, some of you guys may be probably either thinking in the back of your mind, or maybe wishing to raise your hand. Yeah, Tim, but VMware now is introducing vSafe, okay, in their vSphere, and that is correct. All right, and I'll talk a little bit about that if I have time. But I want to get into some of my demos and stuff as well. Okay. Well, now it's decision time. All right. Basically, we have the guy that's here, and you say, "Go ahead and click it." No, we better not click it. We don't really know who this person is. All right, a security warning comes up, all right, that says, ignore the certificate. VMware teaches us, oh, go ahead and click it, that's okay. Or worse yet, check this checkbox and click this to where it never comes up again. Okay? Trust me, this is what it says in their manuals. All right? All of VMware's documentation say, click this. All right, go ahead and continue anyway. As a matter of fact, we were coming up with a name for the presentation, and I heard myself, I said, what about continue to this website, not recommended? And he said, well, no, we better do something else. But basically, the point when I do my demos here on the next slide, you're going to see is we've been taught to do it this way. All right, and even if I tighten it up and something shows up, we're still going to do it that same way. Okay? So, the demonstration is going to show you how insecure. Okay, sure. Okay. All right. How extremely insecure the product VMware ESX and even the soon-to-be released vSphere is. Now, please don't take away from this presentation that ESX is insecure, because it is not. It's probably one of the most secure products I've ever worked with. Okay? Although the defaults that are used in the product, okay, are insecure. If you take the defaults and you click next, 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 I can get into your ESX server in less than 5 minutes. All right? Although they have done a really, really good job of being able to tighten up things like buffer overflows, be able to tighten up a number of different things that would normally be considered insecure from a hacking standpoint of view. Okay. The iSCSI protocol. iSCSI and any type of SAN, okay, even fiber channel, all right, most individuals are using these days because it provides a remote access, okay, to the storage. It also provides us to be able to do things like vMotion. Okay? For those of you that are unfamiliar with that, that's the capability of a VM, a virtual machine, to move while it's still running over to another host, another ESX host, completely transparent to the end user. Okay? What VMware doesn't really tell you, okay, or doesn't actually make a big deal out of telling you, is first off, that nothing is encrypted in that. All right? So I would be able to grab any of that information and pull out any credentials in any of the memory pages. Okay? It's simply a memory footprint that's transferred over the wire, okay, while the machine is still running. So if I act as a man in the middle using a standard utility that we've all kind of grown to know and love, I'm going to use Cain and Abel to do a lot of this type of stuff. All right, but I'm going to do it with a little bit of a twist. Okay? I'm also going to show you the login credentials, all right, where we've actually been shown, go ahead, it's all right, just click it, it'll be just fine. All right? After this presentation, I'm hoping you'll take away that, well, maybe it's not really quite so fine. Okay? Now, a couple of problems that I ran into here when in doing this is that probably, as we know, Cain and Abel will do what's called a fake certificate injection, okay, on port 443. I think most of us in here, okay, are familiar with that or have probably seen those kind of demos. When I talked to Marcel about doing a couple of things, he said, no, these guys are pretty sharp. You're going to have to come up with something new. Well, this is cutting edge. This is something that I know of. Okay? You can please correct me if you know of anyone else who has done this. All right? But I know of no one else that's done this. So you're seeing it first. All right? I hope it works. All right? The problem that I ran into here is that the way VMware authenticates, okay, or ESX server authenticates, is it first authenticates using port 443, then it switches to 902. Okay? There's the problem, all right, in using Cain and Abel. All right? In Cain and Abel, it did the encryption and decryption inside of Cain and Abel. All right? So what I had to do was write a wrapper around the Ethernet card to hand off to me, okay, the various pieces, all right, then decrypt them and then put it back. Okay, so hoping it worked fine yesterday, but it was kind of flaky this morning. Then I got it to work again, so we're going to hope for the best. Okay, but I've also got some things that I can show you if it doesn't work. All right, so on with the show. Basically, something that you may or may not have known about is you can run ESX server inside of VMware. Okay, VMware Workstation. This is actually an ESX server 3.5 running inside of my VMware Workstation, all right, as a VM. And inside of this, I have VMs running inside of ESX. Okay, so when you think about it, wow, pretty cool, huh? Well, in reality, I'm happy to share this technology with anybody, and you can practically find this on the web. This is not something that you should be going, ooh, about, all right? In reality, this is really cool, all right? But you have to have, first of all, the hardware virtualization chip, okay, in your machine to be able to do this. Secondly, you also need to have the capability to turn on that hardware virtualization chip. Not many laptops have that capability, all right? So I had to kind of look high and low to find a laptop that did that. There are a few that do that. There's a couple with IBM, and this HP does it, but they're usually pretty expensive. This laptop right here has 8 gig of memory, hardware virtualization chip, and I paid like $5,500 for it. So it's not cheap, okay? But hey, you know, it was one of those deer, I gotta have it. I mean, you know, I can't do my job without it. Okay? No, we don't need that car. This will be fine. All right, so I won that argument. In addition to that, I've also got an iSCSI target, okay, and all this is just simply a Fedora machine running the iSCSI protocol, and so I've got a disk that's attached to it. It happens to be a virtual disk, and I can actually run ESX, multiple ESX machines inside of here. I can vMotion between them. I can use the iSCSI target as my a target doing high availability, DRS, vMotion. It's really pretty cool, okay? All on the same machine, or multiple machines. So for a testbed environment, it's fantastic, okay? I have just simply a standard XP installed with all my little tools on, all right? And I have another machine out here that I've installed Microsoft iSCSI Initiator on, and I'm going to get access to that particular machine, okay? So what most people believe is that iSCSI is secure, okay? Oh, that's okay because we provide the challenge handshake authentication protocol, okay, MS-CHAP, or we provide perhaps encryption, okay, and that is true, all right? You can use IPsec, all right, to secure this. Unfortunately, with ESX, it doesn't support it. If you're using ESX, while it does use CHAP, it's only a one-way authentication. It's not even a dual authentication in ESX. All right, and that has not changed, unfortunately, in their vSphere product. All right, so the rest of the information is actually text in the clear. Okay? So consequently, if I read information off of the disk or write information to the disk, if I can coerce the information to come by me, I can read it and even manipulate it. All right? And so I'm gonna try and do this demonstration for you with this. All right? So basically what I've got right here is this iSCSI initiator. All right? And as you can probably see, I am poisoning in between the IP address 102, okay, and 101, which is this machine and my iSCSI target. All right? So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to go into this utility. Some of you guys may be familiar with it, derivative of Wireshark called Packetizer, and I'm just simply going to start a packet capture. I'm capturing the packets. All right, I'm going to come over here to my iSCSI initiator. All right, this drive right here is the drive, okay, for the iSCSI device. I'm going to take this document right here and copy it over to this. Thus, with any luck, I've actually captured those packets telling me what was inside of that particular file. All right? If I come back here and look at it, as I said, with any luck, I should have some packets that say iSCSI in here. Okay, here's a couple of them here. Okay. All right. And here is that particular packet right here. All right. I'll show you the information in that file. Okay. This mod was done by Tim Pierson, whatever. Okay. And right here, okay, this mod was done by Tim Pierson and such and such. So I basically captured that information from that iSCSI target, all right, into your text, and there are several utilities that I can use to just simply rebuild that target. I can not only capture it, but I can also modify it. Okay? Think of the kind of damage that I could do if this was a database. Think of the kind of damage that I could do once we've been authenticated to the database to change the values, let's say in my account, okay, for my bank. Right now I think my account, I don't think it was $5, I think it was $500,000. Yeah, that's right, $500,000, that's right. Okay. Can you imagine the kind of damage that can be done? All right. Now most of you that are familiar, by a show of hands, who is familiar with Cain and Abel? All right. Okay, now, what I showed you right here was probably something that is, okay, yeah, Tim, that's fine. Sir, yes, you're saying you're familiar, or you're asking a question? I know what you're probably saying. Yeah, Tim, that's fine, but we've seen this kind of thing before. And yes, I'm not showing you anything new. But what you probably didn't realize is how easy it was and whether that information was in the clear. In reality, iSCSI is simply the SCSI protocol, all right? Like we have things that are hanging off our SCSI chain, okay? The commands that we send to it to initialize this device, initiate a read from this block number to that block number, and so on. All of those same commands are done with iSCSI. We just simply transport that command over IP. That's it. That's the only difference. There's no encryption, okay, unless we've actually added that layer with IPsec or something like that. But again, both sides have to understand it. Now, when we were doing this yesterday, I wanted to show you this demonstration from my data center back in North Carolina, where I was using a $300,000 Stonefly SAN to do this demonstration with, rather than this little iSCSI target. Okay, it works just as well, just as easy. Okay, and it basically lends itself to, ooh, gosh, I spent all this money on that SAN, and it's kind of, it can be done. Any IP version 4 protocol you can do this with. All right. Some of the people may or may not be familiar with some of the mitigation techniques for this. And I'll come back to that if I have time, all right? But oftentimes, we don't have both sides to be able to do this with. And I'll explain further in just a second. Let me move on to my other demonstration. The other demonstration I'm going to do is actually with a is using the VMware infrastructure client. Now, if you're using ESX, you're using this. All right. More than likely, when it comes up, VMware, when you install ESX, it generates a certificate internally. It's a self-signed certificate. And those of us that are familiar with security, it's a self-signed certificate is basically saying, I am this person, and if you don't believe me, just ask me, I'll tell you I'm this person. All right? Now, if you were to open up a bank account, and I use this illustration in a lot of my class, open up a bank account, I'll go into the bank, and they say, well, I need to see some form of ID. Okay, sure. I give them an ID card, and the ID card says Tim's Driver's License Company. They look at it and they say, oh, well, who is this? Well, it's me. Well, how do I know this? Just ask me, I'll tell you it's me. What else do you need to know? That's really what a self-signed certificate is doing. All right? So what we would hope to do is we would hope to have that self-signed certificate trusted from a higher level of authority. Using that same analogy, I have a Texas driver's license who gave Dallas, where I received the driver's license, the authority to give it out was Austin, Texas, our state capital. Who gave Austin the authority to give it out was Washington, D.C. There's a chain of trust, okay, in here, just like there's a chain of trust in certificates. All right? What we would hope to do, and what we've been taught to do, is, okay, as soon as you've got your ESX server installed, you need to go ahead and purchase a certificate from a root authority, and that way you'll know that it's secure. All right? Otherwise, when it comes up, you're going to get something that looks like this. Now, let me go ahead and close this and open this window back up real quick. All right. You notice I've got a couple of things, and again, I hope this works well, because what I had to do is I had to do that handoff from 443 to 902, and it's been working, so we're going to hope for the best. And I double click on this VM infrastructure client, all right, and it comes up. I'm going to tell it that I'm going to log in to this IP address. All right. Inside of here, I'm just simply going to log in as root. All right. And I'm going to use the password at my company, which is Data-Sentry. Okay. So I'm going to hopefully log in, and we're going to get this security warning. And in VMware's documentation, they say, go ahead and click this. It'll be okay. All right. When we click it, it looks like it's going to work. So praise the Lord. Okay. We come up with this, all right? And here's just an example of how I'm running this inside of VMware Workstation, and with any luck here, I'll be able to show you and sometimes I get that. Sometimes I have to boot it more than once to get this to work. So, okay, I logged in first. Okay, so it looks like it's going to, maybe not. Okay. Okay, cool. Just had to think about it. All right, Control-Alt, insert, okay, and one last time. I've been locked out and everything else on both systems, right? Okay, it just basically shows you that yes, I can indeed. What I've actually had up to 8 machines running inside of my ESX server, running inside of Workstation, running on the machine. Pretty cool. Okay, but that's not what I came here to show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get out of this, just exit from this, all right? And I'm actually going to go out to the store where these are kept right here. Okay, and as I said, I had to do just a little bit of modification in this So just a piece of Cain and Abel probably won't work. Okay, what I'm going to do is just issue a command prompt here, and I've got a whole bunch of things that are in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in copy HTTPS, okay, star, okay, and .txt, all right, and I'm going to copy it to all files. How about that? .txt, all right? I'm just going to put them all into one, all right, to make it easy when you look for things. So I'm going to type in Notepad, okay, all files. Okay. And this actually is what the header looks like. Most people really haven't seen it because, you know, it's always been encrypted. It's XML. Okay. All of the stuff, the communications that it's sending back and forth to VMware is just simply XML. All right. So let's see if I can find something in here. Okay. Let's see if I can find where it keeps this. There it is. Okay. Username, Data-Sentry. Okay, here's my password. All right, here's my user. Now, if that doesn't impress your network administrator, it should. Let's talk about mitigation techniques for this. All right. In this particular case right here, how would we mitigate this? Oh, okay, no problem. What we need to do is we need to go ahead and get the, buy a root certificate, okay, and have the root certificate trust this certificate. Okay, problem solved. All right, no problem. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. The first time that you do that, how many people do you think would actually come back and not click that button? Because by doing that, that little dialog box to ignore will no longer come up. But let's say you've been using this now for 2 or 3 months, okay? Do you think you'd click it? All right. Answering honestly, I know you'd click it. All right. I know I would. All right. It's just human nature. All right. We've been taught to go ahead and click it. It's okay. Go ahead and click it. It's fine. No problem. Go ahead and click it. All right. And then we correct the problem. If it comes up, all right, we've been taught, go ahead and click it. It's okay. That's exactly what we're going to do. You're not going to know the difference. Now, before the problem, before we actually do this, all right, you're never even going to know this happened, because the fake certificate injection is going to look exactly the same. All right, let's take a look at the certificate itself. And this is not a real good illustration because I had to use a little makeshift deal here, but it'll give you an idea. Okay, I'm going to go open up Cain and Abel, and I'm going to go out to the certificate store. Now, as most of you guys know, the way Cain and Abel creates a certificate is it actually creates a certificate, and that certificate is a forged certificate with exactly the same information that is from the host. So in other words, if the host's certificate said ABC Good Guys Products.com, that's what this certificate will say. All right. As a matter of fact, every single thing in the certificate is identical to the certificate except this little fingerprint. Okay. And the fingerprint is derived from issue 2, this unknown host name. I'm not sure how it does this, because normally it has my URL in here, since I don't have any kind of DNS here while it's doing this. All right, but let's take a look and compare that certificate to this certificate to what the certificate that we received, okay, otherwise. Now, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop my poisoning, all right, and naturally what I'm going to want to do, okay, is to go into my ARP cache, right? Because in Windows we know that the ARP is going to live for about 2 minutes, okay, by default. Right? So I'm going to do an ARP star -D, okay, and delete the ARP cache. So I do an ARP -A, okay, nothing is found, so it's going to have to find the ARP information. So with any luck here, all right, when I come in here, it'll find that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use Internet Explorer. Okay, and inside of Internet Explorer, I'm going to type in HTTPS ://192.168.1.104. All right, come up in here. All right, it should, with any luck. And I'm not sure how long the ARP cache is going to live on. And that's probably what's causing me a problem. I'm not sure how long the ARP cache is going to live inside of Red Hat Linux version 6. I'd have to go in here and clear that. Okay. Well, what my intent here is, a lot of times it'll go ahead and work is because it just simply asks for it again. But it doesn't look like it's going to cooperate because it knows I'm doing a demo, so of course it's not going to. What I was going to do was to show you the certificate, and you would be able to see how they're absolutely identical. There is no difference in the certificate. All right, the only thing different is that thumbprint. All right, so to the normal user, before a certificate is actually signed, there is absolutely no way for them to be able to tell the difference. All right, so can this happen? Oh yes. All right, will they notice it? No way they would notice it. All right, does that make sense? All right, so. Okay, so basically, what have we learned? All right, and here we basically learned that things are not always what they should be from default. Also, VMware has done a really good job of securing their product, and if this is of interest to you, we teach a whole 5-day class on different ways to hack into VMware ESX. It's a fascinating class. And you'll find that it's a very secure product, but there are ways around it. And you need to be on your toes to not let the bad guy know the way around it. Because if you compromise the ESX server itself, okay, that's a very juicy target from a hacker, because you not only get access to just that ESX machine, you get access to every single one of those VMs on that machine. Okay? Wouldn't that be an ideal thing for a hacker? Okay? Let me do it now. Okay. So basically, the hackers, this is going to be a huge, huge target for them in the future. Okay. And if I were to go in here. See if I can. I can't remember the commands right now. I think it was right. Okay. Yeah, that's one way of seeing it for sure. If I bring the interface up and down, that's one way of seeing it for sure, right? Okay. All right. So here's the two certificates, absolutely identical. We look at the details of the certificate. This is absolutely identical. The only thing different right here is going to be this thumbprint. That's the only thing that's different. All right. Because when Enable generates the certificate, it generates a fake certificate with exactly the same information. It can't sign it. So it signs it with a fake key. Well, it's fake anyway. So what's the difference? All right, you get my point? Okay, guys, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you very much, Steve.